Welcome to the Probate Mastermind podcast. These episodes are recorded live once a week and are hosted by the alltheleads.com coaches. Agents, investors, and wholesalers join the coaches for everything from marketing tips, sales psychology, live deal analysis, transaction engineering, advanced real estate strategy, and personal development. You will learn to get more listings, more deals, and find financial freedom by listening to these episodes. Be sure to catch show notes at alltheleads.com/podcast and join our free Facebook mastermind community, All the Leads Mastermind.
Welcome to our spectacular agents and investors from across the U.S. and maybe Canada. Who knows? We may be international and not know it. Today is Thursday, April 21st, 2021. And this is Mastermind Podcast number 324. Waiting for Tim to arrive. We got 5 in the queue now. Great job, guys.
Yeah.
Bruce and I are both on the call, and it's a full queue, so we'll get right to it. I do have 2 quick items I wanted to share with y'all. We are going to bring back a feature that a lot of you have asked for and that we have done before called Ask the Expert. So the first Thursday of every month, and we're going to start it on June 1st. We're going to try to get a guest to come in, and we'll interview them for the first half hour of the call. If any of you guys have any recommendations, please, somebody you're dealing with, somebody who you think most of our subscribers would benefit from dealing with, it's got to be somebody who is either able to operate nationwide or at least has some good advice for everyone. But I think for the guest's benefit, it would be good somebody that had some kind of a nationwide service that we could all benefit from. So if you do have anyone that would like to be our first returning guest for Ask the Expert, that's hard to say 3 times real fast, Ask the Expert, just email me directly, jim@alltheleads.com. My second thing, Tim and I and Bruce are getting together next week, next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we're going to have a business meeting in Cocoa, our headquarters in Cocoa, Florida. If any of you have any ideas, things that you would do if you own the company, send them to me also. Some of our best suggestions, changes have come from our subscribers. So likewise, just send an email to jim@alltheleads.com. And I heard a lot of noise there. I think that was Tim coming on. Bruce, you want to give a real quick overview of Foundations, please?
Yeah, and Tim normally makes a lot of noise when he enters a room, so you guys can just ignore some of that noise that you might have heard.
Thank you very much.
It's usually not a lot of noise. Just getting out of his chair is usually a racket. But
yeah,
Bruce,
I will tell you guys, we've had an amazing, a really great week in Foundations. We probably had over maybe just shy of 100, but definitely over 90 people that registered and attended and are watching the replays of the Foundations. A bunch of people have registered for the Foundations that we're doing in 2 weeks, and we even have a bunch of people that have already started signing up for the one next month. A lot of repeats, but a lot of new people as well, and I think that this was one of the best ones yet. I went in, if you took it a month ago, come back, because I've redone some content and I'm adding more and more in, and we're trying to keep each session to 2 hours, so 4 hours total between the 2 days. That's pretty tough. So if you're showing up expecting to get out at 2 hours on the dot after Q&A and after we kind of riff through some advanced level stuff, you're probably going to be in with us for at least 2.5 hours, and everybody's staying is the beautiful thing. Everybody's staying in, so it's not a garbage class. Please sign up for that. And even if you're a non-subscriber, it is now open to you guys. There's a way to register. Just watch for our emails or call our sales team and ask how you can register for that if you're a non-subscriber.
Are you using that? Are you using that as your slogan? It's not a garbage class. Is that it?
It's the world's okayest probate class. That's the official slogan.
Wow, that's excellent. Great marketing.
And marketing is a part of the Foundations class. So if you want to know how to market yourself as just an okay investor or an average agent, show up to Foundations. And if you don't know that I'm joking, please check your sense of humor.
Yeah, I would just like to add one other thing. That's to add that in talking to customers over the last week and a half. One of the things I'm hearing about it is that it's very relevant, it's very quick, it moves quickly. They get a lot of what they need, and they can move on and apply them really quickly, and that's all good news. And it has been very, very rewarding. Good feedback.
It's really something that you should be able to apply everything that we teach you in that class. You should be able to apply it in the first 30 days that you're working the probate niche and have your business up and running, and it's designed to get you closing business quickly, as quickly as possible. We still establish some really credible expectations so that you know what to expect and there's no disappointment. I've run into in the past people that were disappointed that maybe they didn't get business in week 1 or month 1, but then when they stuck with it and they got to month 3, 4, 5, they started seeing massive returns on their business. But they needed not only the skills, but they needed the appropriate expectations, and that's what we drive home really hard in that class.
Awesome. And Bruce, if you would, just remind everyone, if you're a subscriber, it's free. If you would like to try it, some people just feel like they need to know everything before they do anything, and we discourage that, but it's human nature. If that is the boat you fit in, it is ridiculously inexpensive if you're not a subscriber and you want to take it. And I believe, Bruce, someone can take it twice, right? If they're not a subscriber, they can take. If they are a subscriber, they can take it as many times as they want. If they're not and they want to pay a very small fee, they can take it twice. So there's a tremendous opportunity to get comfortable. Go ahead, please.
And you can, if you take it and you say, man, this is amazing. Now it's time to turn my probate leads on. We'll give you a discount on your next month of leads. So take the class. You make a good chunk of it back when you do sign up and start getting leads from us. So it's just there's every incentive to at least sign up and take the course.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we have 5 in the queue. We love participation. There is room for more. Hit *6 and hit 1. And first up this week is phone number ending in 3460. You're up first.
Hey, good afternoon. Cliff Bowman, Austin, Texas. Just did the probate mastery about 3 weeks ago. Trying to wrap my hand around just some very basic questions. So I'm trying to figure out when I call my circle of influence, and if I make 10 phone calls, I typically only reach 2 or 3, and I'm assuming that would be kind of the same statistic as when I start calling the leads. Am I kind of hitting that on the nail, or? That's the first question of about 3 or 4.
Well, do you have the other ones written down, or do you want to roll them out and let me address them?
No, that was the first question. The second question really was, is there a window of time that's been a more successful window of time of reaching people? And then probably the third question is, in Texas at least, at Coldwell Banker, they've discouraged us not to call people that have a do not call. And I'm assuming that more than likely they're probably in these leads. There's quite a bit of do not call, and do people just go ahead and call those numbers?
And Bruce, I'll let you handle all of those, please. But I wanted to clarify one thing, Cliff. You said when you call your normal leads, 2 out of 10 answer, but you haven't actually started calling the probate leads yet, correct?
No, and I haven't paid for it. Yeah, I'm just talking about my circle of influence. They call it SOI, when I just trying to reach out to people who've known me in the past. Probably every 10 calls, actually only talked to 2 or 3, and I'm assuming that probably is the same ratio as if I were calling the probate lead.
Okay, Fair enough. Bruce?
All right. So first off, let's try to get that ratio of answers on your sphere of influence up a little bit. I'd love to push that to 50%. If you want to know how, catch up with me off class. I'll give you a couple of tips on that, and not to patronize you or condescend you, because I'm sure you've been doing this for a while. I usually get around 60, sometimes more percentage of my sphere of influence to answer, or at minimum every now and then they don't, but they'll call me right back. So it's usually higher. Probate is about 20% in the first month. Generally, I divide people into 2 overall categories. And the first category is the type of person that's going to answer or return an unknown number. And the second type of person is the one that does not answer and return an unknown number. I just got fussed at earlier today for being in the latter category. If you call me and I don't know your number and you don't leave a message, you probably aren't going to get a call back. And that's terrible for a realtor. You guys can scold me offline, please. But I just fit in that second category, and there's a lot of people. I think it's about 80% of people don't answer or return an unknown number, but 20% do. So in the first month, I'm looking for around 20, maybe 25% of my list to engage with me in some level of conversation. Oftentimes that happens on the first call. Sometimes the rest of that 25%, 25% answer on my second call. So we teach you to call at least one time each month. I kind of prefer if someone has the bandwidth that their first month they do 2 or 3 calls, and that's where you're going to catch your 20, 25%. You're going to have some kind of a dialogue with them. And then 75, 80% probably aren't going to answer for several months. So you're going to be calling them and leaving them voice messages, sending them letters, and generally around the 4th month you start to get some engagement out of that 80%. Because they know you now. They're starting to get into the window of time where they're ready to sell a house. They've gotten your marketing. You have a brand and some credibility in their mind, so that they'll start to call you back and answer the phone around that 3rd or that 4th month. And to repeat myself, month 1, 20, 25%, somewhere in that range. Now, the best time to call, I want everyone to just toss what you've learned on the best time of day to call out the window during COVID time. And I'm not sure if that's ever going to go back. Studies from MIT show that between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. or between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. are technically the better times to call. But the problem, Cliff, and I don't know if you've experienced this or not, sometimes you're not the best there. And so I would rather call when you are the best or you are the most consistent. And if 8 to 10 a.m. is the time when you're the worst, you're the groggiest, you're least likely to be consistent, call it noon, which is statistically kind of a bad time to call. But I don't really care as long as you're good and you're going to do it consistently. And then, of course, now that everybody seems to be working at home, you're catching people at all times of the day. So I encourage someone to pick a 90-minute window every day, 3, 4, 5 days a week, and call during that 90-minute window every day. And if you're not able to get people, you might throw in an extra 30 minutes in an opposite time of the day to try to catch some of the people that aren't responding.
Beautiful. And so, obviously, do you leave a message or you typically just hang up after the 4th or 5th ring?
It depends on how many times you're going to call them. If you're going to call once a month, let's say month 1 you call and you're not planning to call anyone that does not answer, you're not planning to call them back for another month, you better be leaving a message on that first call.
Okay.
If you are planning to call everyone who hasn't answered, if you're going to call them again in a couple of days or a week, you can skip the first message, I think, as long as you hit them again a few days or no longer than a week later. By the time I get to that second call, if they haven't responded to me, I'm going to start leaving messages at that point.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. All right. Any questions on that before I go to the DNC?
Yeah, no, I'm good with that. Okay,
good. All right, DNC. This is how many disclaimers can I add here? All right. This is not legal advice. This is not financial advice. I'm going to give you a couple of different ways that some people look at it. Some people just flat out, they're working for a brokerage that says you're not going to call the DNC list. Other people have told me that they've been advised legally. Okay, this is a major point of contention depending on who you talk to. But some people say that if you're not calling and actively selling something, you should be able to call the do not call list if you're offering a service. I don't know if that's the answer. I can tell you that a lot of people that are out there that have a probate list, they're looking at the risk and reward. And the risk of not calling everybody is that you're not going to make any money. And that's pretty much a guaranteed risk.
That's a black.
Now, the risk of calling everyone is that you might get dinged. And if you do, it's going to be painful. but it's a maybe versus a guarantee. So the people that call say, hey, I'd rather play to the guarantee that if I don't call them, I'm going to lose potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, so I'm going to call everybody. And I'm going to delicately offer a service and not give a really, really hard sales pitch, because the hard sales pitch is what pisses somebody off and makes them turn you in. If you don't, then it's unlikely they're going to get mad. And I think Jim had something he wanted to throw in there as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add, we've heard from attorneys, and our clients have told us that they have had, again, talk to your own attorney. We got to be super careful. But we've heard that when someone agrees to be the executive of the estate, they're agreeing to have their information put into public record. So it's pretty hard. It's probably more difficult to say, hey, I agreed to do this, but I didn't want anybody to contact me regarding it. So I think if there is risk, it's probably considerably less than calling a FSBO and expired, that didn't volunteer to work with people interested in the property. So you got to factor all that in, but it's just an extra consideration I wanted to point out.
So the other thing that you want to think about is who is actually threatening you. You've got the FTC, who is the government entity that generally pursues cases as the government, and they're typically looking for call centers that are consistent violators that are just spamming people. And then sometimes you have lawyers, and some of those lawyers are essentially going to say, hey, we'll keep this off of the FTC radar if you pay me. And it's good to be aware of what you're dealing with. Sometimes it's the lawyer that is the harder one to deal with. I don't think we've ever had any of our subscribers get dinged. I have known a couple of large, like statewide real estate teams that have gotten fined pretty good. Normally, they're making millions of dollars, and that $30,000 fine that they pay, they're considered a cost of doing business. But I have known a couple of people that got hit, just none of our subscribers. So, and it bears repeating, this is not legal, financial, accounting. This advice is not really advice at all. It's just a couple of ways of looking at it.
And let me weigh in for just 1 second and state a politically correct answer from our corporate standpoint. And they both said the same thing. We can't tell you to call them, and certainly we're not going to do that. The issue is that, as both Bruce and Jim said, you got to look at risk reward. The reality is there's a law in the books. The book says if you're on the do not call list and you get a phone call, you're liable for a fine of up to $2,500 per incident. The issue there is that, a onesie, twosie is not who the big boys are getting chased by. However, having said that, you need to make your own decision about this. Be familiar with the law. Look it up. It's on our website. We give you links to it. We encourage you to be familiar and make your own choices. And we are not, and I'll just repeat this straight up, we're not encouraging you to do this or not do this. And I would add one other thing to what Bruce just said, saying that you won't make money if you don't call them. That's a strong statement to make. We have people that.
No, it's very, very true. I mean, it's a strong statement, but it's right on target because there's a lot of DNC phone numbers out there. Well,
sure there are, and they're more all the time. And the real challenge here is this: that, as Bruce also said, if you accept the authorization as a PR for an estate, you're bound legally to accept incoming, not necessarily calls or anything else, but you're basically putting yourself out there as that person to settle the estate. So if, for example, I was calling and I had a claim against the estate, I had a mechanic's lien against the house or a contractor's lien or anything else that's there, you got to take those calls. You got to get them. And the issue is, if you're not prospecting to sell something, then that's a different story. I mean, if you're just calling to, shoot the breeze with Billy Bob and you happen to get a number that's on the do not call list, well, there's nothing Billy Bob can do about that. It's advertising solicitation. So just be familiar with the law, make your own choices, and let's move on with that. I think we've covered that, but I just want to be sure that you're aware we're not saying, oh, yes, go make these calls, because that would be inappropriate for us to do.
Beautiful. Okay.
Well,
there was a couple more parts of this. Did we answer all the parts of your question or no?
No, I think you've really covered the majority of them.
Okay. Bruce, anything else to add?
No, I don't have anything else. I'm sure I'll come up with something here in a few minutes.
Okay. Well, we got a full queue. Thank you, Cliff. Next up is phone number ending in 8066. You're up next.
Yes, hi. My name is Beth, and I am an investor agent. And I just wanted to first start with some success stories. I have 2 listings through Probate, and really what sold the deal was is your house vacant, and have you talked to your insurance company? And they immediately knew that I had some more information about the probate process than other agents, and that made a big difference. And then, I followed up with the email with different other resources, and they were just, they're contacting the business owners, and they're happy because they're getting referrals, and it's just a great process. So I really appreciate the training that I got from you guys. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for you. That's great. Congratulations. You said you had 2. Were they both similar circumstances? The insurance got both of them?
No, the second one actually was a friend of mine is a home health care worker. And when the mother passed away, she let me know. And then the father has currently been moved into an assisted living, and now they're ready to put the house on the market. So the home health care worker was a great referral partner because she obviously knows the situation, and we're actually getting the house on the market before her father passes away because she's got power of attorney. So
that's great.
Yeah, so that was
Beth,
yes.
Can I make, before you ask, I know you probably have questions as well. Can I make a couple of points to what you just brought up?
Yes, absolutely.
The first is, if you're an agent or even an investor, you need to be talking with your sphere of influence about this niche and specialization that you're engaging in. You need to be talking with those people, because so many times they're going to be, many of them, I'm going to venture to say at least 5% per year of the people that you know and are already communicating with are going to go through probate or be really close with someone that is the PR going through probate this year. And it's not just 2021, it's really every year. Every time I bring probate up to people that I know, I always hear, oh yeah, I just went through it last year. I just went through it 2 years ago. So it's probably a lot higher than that. And we're starting to talk about some things that are outside of just our leads. Our leads are amazing, but you need to be meeting the home health care workers. You need to be talking to your sphere about this niche that you're in, because they don't know anyone that specializes in this. Your competition is out there going, oh, by the way, if you know anyone that needs to buy or sell real estate, I'm never too busy for your referrals. That's what your competitors are saying, and that doesn't stick in the mind of the person that you're talking to. But when you talk about probate and helping families, that sticks, and they're going to think of you when they know someone going through that exact situation. My second point was that if you, like a lot of our subscribers, had ignored the fact that this second deal you just described was a surviving spouse, you may not have gotten that business. And so many people say, and I know you're not saying this, Beth, I'm using your example as a teaching moment. If you're someone that's working the probate niche and you're saying, hey, I don't want to talk to surviving spouses, you would have missed the deal that Beth just got. Because surviving spouses still sell. They still move. They still downsize. They still go into sometimes hospice or they move in with family members. There's a lot of business there and a lot of help that you can offer to the families as well. And that was a really long-winded. I apologize for butting into the middle of your success story, Beth, but I knew I was going to forget those teaching moments if I didn't.
No, that's great. And I'll just follow up too. As soon as I got home from my appointment, I crafted the email with all of the people that we discussed. I told her at the appointment, you don't have to worry about writing any of this down. I'm going to send you an email. I'm going to copy them all on this so they get it, and then they're accountable as well. And then I'm following up with them, separately just to make sure that they're doing what they said they were going to do. But that was a big relief for her, that she didn't have to worry about making the phone calls. And the business partners reached out to her, which also made it easier for her as well. So that was a huge tip of send the email, give the contact information, but copy the referral partners on the email, because then the ball's in their court. It's one less thing that you have to do.
Absolutely. Great job. Great job.
Okay. So a couple questions about, so as I'm going through the probate list, just a couple questions. I am seeing that there are probates that are being filed in my county, but all of the properties that are owned are outside of either the county or the state. And I'm not quite sure why that happens and how that occurs.
So generally speaking, if there is property, and I don't know, it varies state by state as to the level of value that the property needs to have. But if there's property, including personal, that was purchased or owned or licensed in a particular county, you have to open probate in that county as well. So if you're seeing real estate that is all outside of the county, there's likely that either A, they just hired an attorney in the county that you're in, and that attorney opened probate there mistakenly, or maybe they opened probate mistakenly in the county, or maybe they own a boat or an RV and it's licensed in that county. There's various different reasons that might come up.
Okay. So if I have one, she has 3 properties in West Virginia, would that still be something that I could, still, reach out and say, hey, if you need a referral to get, to help you with the properties in Virginia, because she doesn't live there, she lives here in New York, would that still be something that you would recommend? Okay.
Absolutely. And Beth, I was just going to add, too, remember, if she's in your county there, even if there's no property to sell there, it is a referral to West Virginia. But remember, especially with 3 properties, when they sell, you're talking to somebody that probably is going to have inherited hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe much more than that. She could be a potential buyer. She may want to list her home and buy a nicer one. She might want to buy some investment property. The fact that she's local, that doesn't exclude her from being a client for you.
Perfect. And then the second question is, I have another one. There's 4 properties, $1.7 million, and one of them happens to be listed. It's in New Jersey, though, not in New York. So I feel like that's a little delicate, but I wanted to get some advice on reaching out, because the other property, there is one closer to me, and then there's also one in Pennsylvania. So, well, if I send them, hey, information, but one of the properties is already listed, am I in conflict with another real estate agent?
Well, not on the one that is listed, you are, but if they're not and they choose to, you can list a property with one agent for one and another agent for another. You don't have to do them all the same. But also, you mentioned that you could look at it as an investor, and you could certainly start the dialogue there if you want to look at it delicately.
Okay, sounds good. And then lastly, I did find a property that it's actually a neighbor of mine that was listed in the probate, and they're not listed as the owners. And I'm just wondering if that's maybe a historical owner that still has some ties to it and some sort of file somewhere. It was weird.
Wait, are you saying that your neighbor owns the property but they don't show up on it?
They own the property on the tax record, but when I pulled it up in all the leads, it shows that it's owned by this person that just passed away. Okay.
And have you spoken with your neighbor?
I did. I said, hey, how's it going?
Yes. And they say they own it free and clear?
I did not ask that question. I was trying to find out if maybe it was a father-in-law or something that had passed away and he was holding the note, or I don't know. You never know.
And is it the neighbor's house? Is the house that the decedent left in your neighborhood, or is that house somewhere else and your neighbors are the new owners?
No, it's right down the street from where I live.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And you checked the tax records, and it does show what we sent you, or it shows that your neighbors own it?
It shows that the neighbors own it.
Interesting. Yeah. It's hard to say. It could be. Did you see a recent transfer to them? Did you look at a sales history to see, when it might have moved?
No, I didn't dig into it that far. I mean, there was 2 other properties associated with him, so I'm still going to reach out, but I just thought that was interesting.
Well, that looks interesting only because it also might be that there's a lien on it that doesn't show up somewhere. But I would go look at transfers and see when it last transferred, and potentially that's the person that sold it to them, and maybe it was very recent. He did it right before he died or whatever, Yeah,
interesting. Okay, that was it.
Hey, Beth, that is great. I want to backtrack just a little bit. It's kind of gnawing at me, the one that has the $1.7 million. I think I would not wait for a letter. I think if they got 4 properties worth that much, I think I'd pick up the phone and call them. And if you're uncomfortable about one of them being listed, just reference the one that is near you that isn't listed. I think I would.
I'm very leery about it because New York right now, of course, has this do not call associated with the COVID executive order, and it's very, very serious if we get challenged on it. So. What I may do is reach out to the listing agent of the property that's already there and see if I can get, I don't know, because he's in New Jersey, and maybe get a referral. So
you could do that. Another thing that you should do on your letters as a realtor, and I put this on all of my letters, is down at the bottom of the letter in the footer, I always put, if your house is actively listed with a realtor, this is not meant as a solicitation of that listing. So from a marketing standpoint, you should just put that in your letters anyway, just to avoid any of that potential realtor code of ethics violation drama that happens. But ultimately, I mean, maybe you go do a door knock if they're close, or maybe you instead of mailing them a standard business envelope, you put a personalized letter into a FedEx envelope or a USPS priority mail envelope, and just give them something a little bit more custom, which has a higher likelihood of getting opened.
Okay. Yeah, I'm using another service for my real estate business called Send Out Cards. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
sure.
It's extremely powerful because you can customize it, and it looks like a greeting card, and it gets opened all the time. So I may try something like that as well. So I appreciate the feedback.
Just so you know,
awesome.
we also do the exact same thing that you're talking about doing. I don't know, we don't talk about it a lot because we focus on letters, but we send out thousands of cards a month as well, and we'll do it right to your merged list. So if you wanted to use a card approach, we can certainly talk with you about that.
Okay, great.
All right.
Anything now with New York State to, get something opened is critical.
Nice are as to when they're taking it off. Are they still saying now it's October? Is that what the last I heard or something?
No, it's April 29th, but every month it kind of gets extended and it gets extended and it gets extended. So right now it's through April 29th, and then hopefully we'll hear that it's been lifted, and if not, then we'll proceed as we have been.
All right. Well, keep us posted as well, and we monitor that pretty heavily too. So
great.
Thank you so much, Beth. You are currently in first place for our winner of the week with all those wins. Congratulations. Great job. I love it. All right. Next up is phone number ending in 4055. You're up next.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Nick in Sarasota. First off, let me just say I was in Bruce's classes yesterday and on Tuesday. Absolutely great. Got a lot out of it. Certainly appreciate it. I learned a lot, and I spent today kind of on the of course, day 2 was about the phoning and calling and all of that. So I spent a little time this morning getting together my approach on the phone and piecing together everything we talked about to start getting on the phones. So my question is, I am actually on a team, and the subscriber is my team leader here, who has been receiving leads for quite a while now, probably at least a year. So my question is, I'm new. I'm getting ready to start this. I'm getting ready to attack these leads. What do you suggest I should start with? The most recent? Because he has the letters going out every 30 days. I mean, how far back should I go? He hasn't worked them a lot himself. Just looking for some guidance on which ones I should start dialing on first.
I would probably pick two lists and run simultaneous. I'd go back to the sweet spot of these leads, and the sweet spot is really that 4 to 8 month window. I probably wouldn't start at 8 months. I might start at 4 months, and then don't leave a big gap in time before you also start calling the newest list as well. So I'd kind of bookend it starting at maybe the 4th or the 5th month and the 1st month, and then I'd work toward the middle and meet in there. So today I might call month 5, month 1 tomorrow, month 4 the next day, month 2 the next day, and then end on month 3. And then you can go back to the older leads and start working those as well. But I'd start with 5 and 1. And that's just kind of if you ask me tomorrow, I'll change my mind. So don't ask me tomorrow. Just do that.
Okay. So to start with, let's just call it December leads that he was getting, and then do this month, and then go to January, and then sort of back and forth like that.
Yep.
And don't forget when you're making those calls to refer to the fact that you said your team lead is making sure the letters get out. Make sure you refer back to those letters and say, we sent you a letter back so and so, and that you're aware of that. That gives you a warm intro or a warmer intro to that call. Don't lose sight of the fact that you're following up on that mailing. That's the best way to do that.
Okay.
And Nick, how many months is your team leader mailing? Is he doing 3 months and that's it? Do you know?
I think I believe he does 3 months.
Okay, because I just wanted to add something too, that if you can get him to, to just spend a little bit more, you may want to go back. We do have a 6-month letter. You could go back on everything, 4 months to a year old, run it through Probate Plus, see which ones haven't sold yet, and send them letters. Send a 6-month letter, and then you could follow up. Hey, you've been getting letters from us. Matter of fact, we just sent you one, a few weeks ago, and follow up on it that way. And if he chooses to run it through Probate Plus first, he would only be mailing to the ones that haven't sold yet. That can be a really effective technique. I'll tell you personally, I love working these myself for buying and flipping houses, and I find I usually do 1 to 2 year old leads, and if you're working 6 months or older, it varies by market, but probably 80% of them are going to be sold, but the 20% that aren't, probate's over, they're going to be ready to do something, and you're going to have zero competition. I have people tell me all the time, my phone, I was getting all kinds of mail, and I was getting calls, and honestly, you're the only one that's even contacted me in the last 6 months. They've thrown away all those old letters, so now you're the only game in town. So the fact that, a lower percentage are still going to be available is more than offset by the fact that you're going to have very little competition. Make sense? Did we lose you? I love his caller ID. It's Best Real Estate. You still there, Nick?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Oh,
all
yeah.
right.
I guess Nick's voice changed dramatically. Well, we hope Nick got that message, and it looks like our next caller jumped in there. Phone number ending in 2378. You're up next.
Yeah, apologies to Nick for bumping him off if I did. I am Nancy Brooke, and I'm with Billings Best Real Estate. That's the name. I just got started with this. I had a team member a year ago who was working leads, and she left and wasn't really very engaged with it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. I just have to tell you, I'm not afraid of making calls at all, but I just felt so awkward. I made one call yesterday, and the guy didn't end up having property. He was nice enough. So, and I guess what it is maybe just lack of confidence, like, hey, I have all these resources to help you. Here I am. It just, the whole thing felt weird, and I don't know. I just needed a little bit of help to kind of get over my reluctance.
Sure. Bruce?
Hey, Nancy, do you have a conversation hook that you deliver? In other words, a question that you deliver after you describe your service?
Well, what I used, I basically used the script that you guys provided, and I guess it was the USP that I used. So, basically, I can provide a service to help you and families in the community, and just wondering how things are going with the probate process, that kind of thing. So that's what I said. But I just didn't have. I mean, he was nice. He was fine, and he engaged in a really nice conversation with me. But I know if it would have been anyone else, it would have been a little awkward.
Well, you want to kind of have a conversation hook at the end of it. And if you haven't gone through Foundations, join Foundations next time, because I spend an entire day teaching this dialogue outline. And not a script. There are a couple of single line scripts that I teach through the process, but it's really kind of a format for your call. And one of my favorites that I like to deliver, and I want everyone that listens to this to understand that you don't want to deliver this if you're not fairly comfortable handling their answer. But when I get to the end of the value that I present, I'll say, should I assume that so far you have everything handled in your process? And I just go ahead and give them the objection right up front, because I know that 9 times out of 10, that person that needs me, they need me, but they don't want to admit it because they don't know me. And and I'll go ahead and say that, and then that person all of a sudden feels no pressure. Like, it just lifts the pressure off of their shoulders. They're like, oh man, now I have to. They don't feel like they have to come up with an objection. You'll be surprised the number of people that say, no, I don't have it handled. Well, I shouldn't need to teach anyone a script or a dialogue if someone says, no, I don't have it handled. That ought to be an appointment for you. But if they come back and they agree with you, then you validate them. Say that's great. It sounds like you probably weren't really looking for a whole lot of help today, right? And get kind of on their side. And then you go, later down the road when probate is kind of all said and done, that personal property and that real estate that's in the estate, is that stuff that you're kind of thinking about holding on to as a family, or are you guys thinking about selling that? And so suddenly you've built this dialogue approach that actually plays to their natural tendency to resist. And and when you've gone through this and come to Foundations and go through it, when you've gone through it, it just makes these conversations so easy. And personally, I would rather give them the objection that I want them to give me than give them an open-ended question and have them say, like, an open-ended question might be, what's been your struggle in probate so far? And they say, nothing. That's hard to get around. Whereas when you're in control of kind of feeding them the answers that you want, that's where your conversations become really easy. So you've got to sit down and think about it and kind of craft your conversation a little bit and craft it to play to the natural tendencies that people have. And it's going to take you a couple of hours to get that through a class, but join next time. I'm not just sitting here trying to shove Foundations down everyone's throat, but crafting a dialogue is my favorite topic in the world to talk about. And I'm going to shut up because I'll go forever.
Is there a recording of the last one, do you think?
So we send the recordings to everyone that's registered, but if you go in and you register for the next class, I'll make sure that if you can't make it, we'll get you the recordings. And by the way, the dialogue day is the hardest to record because we do breakout sessions, and I can't record the breakout sessions where people are practicing. But email me separately, and we'll work on getting you into the class, and maybe doing some private trainings. I do kind of promise the people that attend that they're going to be the only ones that get it, but I can do a private coaching session with you and work through that.
Okay, well, and I don't want to wait, you know what I mean, if it's going to be a couple weeks, because I sent out my letters last week, and I mean, even if I flub a little bit, I mean, you know what I'm saying, I don't want to just put it off and
Why don't you go to your email now or as soon as this call's over and just send me an email at bruce@alltheleads.com. I'll make sure that I get you booked into a call and we can kind of build that out privately.
Okay. Script help, all right. Thank you so much. I appreciate all your help.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Well, we have 2 in the queue and about 10 minutes left, so that should take us up nicely to the top of the hour. Next up is phone number ending in 7141. You're up next.
Hey, thanks, guys, for taking the call. My name's Larry Smith. I'm in my question is working probate leads remotely. I live in a small mountain town in southwest Colorado, so I'm licensed in Colorado, but I'm also licensed in Texas. And looking at the probate issues in Colorado and the fact that I live in such a small remote area, just there's not enough leads to make sense of it. And I'm intrigued by working the Texas market where I'm from, and wanted to know, is that possible, or is there any agents actually doing that? And if so, what's the pitfalls and the best practices? Loaded question.
No, not at all. Hey, Bruce, I wish I could remember the person's name. We have multiple agents doing that. There's one in particular who's in Colorado, and he's working the Tampa area, Southwest Florida. And last week he was on the call and he spoke. He was doing 3 times as many deals in Florida as he was where he lived. So it absolutely is possible. Any advice for him doing it remotely, Bruce? I mean, the one thing I would say is obviously find boots on the ground. Larry, are you primarily a realtor, an investor, or both?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, more of a
both?
realtor, but I'm dipping my toes in the investment side, and I've got investors that could partner with me. So just it's situational. I could go either way depending on what the needs are of the client.
Fair enough. Then you probably, and you're licensed in Texas, so you probably, if real estate is your strong suit, I probably would start by looking for an investor that would be your boots on the ground, and just make it real clear to them, some of these I'm going to list, some are going to be good deals for you, but I just need somebody on the ground to go by and check out the house. You can, it's one thing I recommend, it's an app called PropStream, and there's a lot like that where you can get really good valuations without seeing the house. I mean, you can Google and see the outside, you can see pictures, you can get the value down, you can talk to the seller and determine that it's a deal, and then you just need boots on the ground to just go make sure the pictures are accurate and make sure, the interior walls are standing, that kind of thing. And that, if you complement your weakness, which is the investment side of it, with your strength, which is being a realtor, maybe, try to find an investor with boots on the ground. I interrupted you. You started to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that I'm also an MLS member there too. So in terms of tax, property, stuff like that, that's not going to be a challenge. It's just my thing was, how common is it to have a face-to-face with a family representative, that kind of thing, where that would be my challenges.
I know Bruce. Sure. I know Bruce has an answer that he wants to add also, but I would tell you that you remember a large majority of these executors are not local anyway, so I think that's probably with probate, it's probably the rule rather than the exception. You don't meet the people in person, so that's not unusual. And Bruce, you had something to add?
Well, it really kind of depends. You need to craft your answers and present them with confidence. And anytime you present your process with confidence, they're typically going to go with it. If you go, hey, I know you probably want to meet me, but I can't quite get there, they're going to feel like there's something wrong with that. But if you just say, hey, great, basically my process is we do a quick Zoom conversation. It's about 10 or 15 minutes. We discuss your needs. Then I'll send one of my team members over, take a look at the house. We'll give you a thorough analysis of what kind of price we can get for you or offer that we can make you. When do you want to do the Zoom? And suddenly you're completely off of the hook for being that guy that they're expecting to show up at the house personally. Now, I would have someone that can go check these houses out for you, and I'd probably pay them a fee for maybe an interior broker price opinion. So pick somebody up that could do, that can go check houses out and do a detailed broker price opinion for you. And you might be dropping them a couple $100 to do it. But, and I wouldn't do that until I've had the Zoom meeting with them and had a very high level of confidence that you were going to get the deal. And if you don't want to pay a couple $100 for that, maybe you make them a co-listing agent. You give them 50% or 30% or whatever of the deal when it closes.
It occurred to me also, Larry, you could use an inspection service. go have the, it's going to be a little more expensive, maybe $400, but you could just, especially if the house is vacant and it's, not going to spook the seller, send somebody out to give you an inspection report, exactly know what your numbers are before you finalize the price. A lot of different ways you can go.
Cool. Well, I think that answer probably just nailed it for me, so I'll be signing up. But that's a perfect answer for that process question. I love that. So good stuff. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir. We always try to come up with perfect answers, and sometimes we actually do. Exactly. I appreciate that. You too, sir. We have one more in the queue, and it's probably a good thing we saved him for last. Fed, you're up last. I always give you a hard time, Fed, because you always got a lot to say. Hello, sir. How are you?
It's all good. I'm well. Thank you, guys. So I have an update for you guys. Been making my calls. Been a little more consistent. The foundation classes with Bruce have been helping significantly with the dialogue, so thank you. So the update is this. I set an appointment with a PR. It took 2 calls. She communicated to me that the initial challenge they were having is that they were the mother had not placed the house in the living trust, so that was the initial challenge, but that they're planning on selling in the next 2 months. So I got initially, since there's 3 family members, they didn't know when they could meet. So I just said, look, let's set, because everyone's busy, how about we schedule a tentative appointment, and then we could always change it at a later time if need be. So we have the appointment for not this Saturday, but the following one. And after that, I made sure to get the PR's email address as well. So I followed up with her and sent her a copy of the original letter that was mailed out by you guys. And then I ended that email with the whole, just so we're on the same page and everyone knows what the meeting's about, we're going to go through the property and just that whole process so that they don't feel pressure, right? My question now is, during the call, I did bring up the vacant policy, and she stated that her brother is sometimes at the property, but not often. So I said, well, let's kind of make sure that the asset is protected just in the unlikely but possible event that they're squatting or any type of damage. So I guess my main question with this little background story is, since the appointment is about 10 days out now, I would like to stay in touch with her, just to kind of stay in front of her. Could an approach, what do you think the best approach is? Should I bring up follow up and see if they placed a vacant home insurance policy on the property or they need one? Or should I suggest that I can go place a no trespassing sign on the property? I essentially just want to make sure that, because some other people could be calling, I'm just staying in front as much as possible, the most familiar name, or at least one of the most familiar names.
Two things, Fed. I would, number one is I would send them some information of value. I originally wrote a letter that was supposed to be one of the letters that I dripped on people, and it was a long form letter that was the 5 steps to navigating the probate process. It didn't work, but that's something that I send people frequently after I have some really good engagement. I want to stay top of mind, and I'll do that full-size envelope with that. And it's just a custom piece. So that's one. Number 2 is you should probably go out and see if there are any good comps that have just been listed or sold in that area that would be really good, especially the new ones, and say, hey, I wanted to call you. I was just maybe showing houses or just looking at some houses for some clients, and I saw this and I thought of you guys, and I wanted you to know, I know, no pressure. I know that you're not ready to go list the house or sell right now, but I wanted to let you know what just sold around the corner, or what just came on the market around the corner from you. And and I was just thinking about you. So that's just a good excuse. Both of those are good excuses to get in front of them. Or, hey, I'm going to be out in the area tomorrow, and I thought maybe since I had these no trespassing signs and these statutes, I could stop by and just put them on the house. Would that be okay with you? That would be another option.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely do that, because I guess when I went over the you know how in the dialogue that we discuss in the foundations, we kind of usually say our service generally focuses on 3 main areas, real estate, repairs, and personal property. So when I went over those particular things, I said, some families, want to take care of it, but they just don't want to be taken advantage of. What we can provide is either a standard. If you wanted to just a cash offer, we could do that. If you wanted to go more the traditional route, we could also help with that. She said, well, I would always love a cash offer. Now, I do have an investor ready, and I know he'd pull the trigger, and I pulled the comps and kind of saw the activity in the area. So when I go meet with the PR and the 2 siblings, there's 3 people total. So she said she's gathering everyone so that everyone can ask me questions that day. Should I bring the investor with me who I know very well and therefore would not circumvent me? They would not go around me. Or should I have that meeting first, see where it goes, bring a listing agreement just in case they do want to move forward, and then perhaps set up, hey, look, I can bring an investor to see it if we want to go the cash route?
Well, I would, the answer to your question, Fed, is yes to all, because you could literally go 1,000 different directions and none of them be wrong unless you deliver it in the wrong way. Now, the wrong way to bring someone with you is to just show up with that person with you. So when you confirm the appointment, say, hey, just wanted to let you know I was going to bring my close friend and a cash buyer with me just so he could give a more detailed number. So if you're going to bring your investor, give them a heads up and tell them why. If you're not going to bring the investor, get the investor's kind of range of values and say, look, when you're at the appointment, you just say, and I can't guarantee these numbers, but based on what I'm seeing right now, you should probably be between X and X, and try to try to give a relatively tight range that the investor would honor.
Okay.
In fact, this seems very obvious, but if you're going to bring the investor and has the potential of making an offer while you're there, I would start with the retail price first. Because you start with a investor offer, they don't like it, you might never get the listing. You know what I mean? You may want to, you may want to lead with that and give them their best. Depending on what their desire is. I mean, if they're just set on a investor, if they don't have the time to list it, that's another story. But if they have the option to go either way, I'd probably lead with the retail offer first, and then once you get the property listed, or once they've agreed to list, then you can throw the investor offer on top of it.
Got it. Okay. I'll go ahead and do that. I'll keep you guys posted. So thanks so much for your guys' help. Appreciate it.
Great call, everyone. And boy, we are doing a really good job at keeping these right at an hour. We very much appreciate everyone that showed up today. I want to remind you all, put your thinking caps on. Find an expert that if you know anyone that we can invite to the June call. I want to particularly thank those that actively participated, and I want to challenge each of you, take one thought, one idea, one thing that inspired you on the call today, go out and put it into practice, and please come back next Thursday and share your results with the group. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you the same time next Thursday. Take care.